So why does Trump continue to say that he is studying to see if he has the ability to fire Jerome Powell, who is the head of the Federal Reserve? What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with TechBot Solutions. And if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that I shared this post. And for the past few days, ever since Jerome Powell went live, and we actually live streamed it on this YouTube channel, so just another reason to subscribe if you guys haven't done so already. But Jerome Powell went live and simply gave his opinion on the economic outlook of how our current economy is doing, especially with a lot of these surprises of these higher than expected tariffs. Trump was not a fan because obviously Jerome Powell said he was uncertain and more than uncertain because of the tariffs and the impacts that they are having in the economy. He also said that he wouldn't be surprised if inflation begins to uptick. But again, Trump continues to call for Jerome Powell to be fired. Well, why does Trump want to fire Jerome Powell? Because it was a big expectation that early 2025, the Federal Reserve was going to start cutting interest rates. Remember, the Federal Reserve, who's in charge of our monetary policy, was originally raising interest rates to try to slow down the economy. They have a 2% target, and we're currently at a 2.4% inflation. Some people believe, and they rightfully have that opinion, is that it's already at 2.4%. Why not start cutting interest rates sooner than later? Supposedly, right, in Europe, they've already cut interest rates a total of 7 times. Why is the U.S. taking so long? Well, again, Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Federal Reserve, has stood behind the committee's agreement, and it's a collective agreement, that they have not seen the need to start cutting interest rates yet. If we look at one of the most recent Fed rate monitor tools, again, it's never 100% guaranteed, but it talks about and shows you the probability of the chances for the next Fed meeting or FOMC meeting if the Federal Reserve is going to cut, pause, or increase rate cuts. And we can see that we are still at a 92.5% probability that in the month of May, so May 7th, 2025, which is the next FOMC meeting, that the Federal Reserve is expected to pause. They're not expected to cut interest rates. There's a 7.5% probability that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates. So a very small chance or probability based off of this Fed rate monitor tool. Now, again, there is no tool that will be 100% certain. At the end of the day, the committee, the Federal Reserve, will have to vote if they're going to pause or cut interest rates. But based off of the way that Jerome Powell said, he said that he's not in a rush. He sees there to be no reason to start cutting interest rates now. But again, you continue to see numerous posts. Trump is eager to get Jerome Powell out of the Federal Reserve because of his, what do we want to call that? Inability to see eye to eye with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Now, I want to be very open about this. Now, first off, Trump has no power to remove Jerome Powell. Let's make that very clear. So I posted this on my Instagram, and I love sharing this news with you guys because some people get upset when I share it. I hope it bothers you enough to encourage you to learn more about it. That's all the point is, right? I'm not here to trigger, like, you getting mad at me isn't going to do me any good. It doesn't do me any good, doesn't do you any good. But it's important to inform yourself. The President of the United States has no power to remove the head of the Federal Reserve, regardless if he agrees or disagrees with how he's doing things. Let's make that very clear. He does not. This is a waste of time and a waste of energy for Trump to even say that he has any power to do so, right? It's just trying to get the uninformed American angry or angered at the Federal Reserve, and rightfully so, right? I posted a video about it, and a lot of people were very angry about Jerome Powell. Yeah, Trump, we go with Trump. JP doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, sure, but you should inform yourself on how things work. He has no power. With that being said, can the Federal Reserve justify a rate cut? Let's be very unbiased about this. Let me make this very clear for myself, for those that are not familiar with my content. I've been wanting markets to pull back. I love that they've been pulling back. We've called markets overbought and overvalued in late 2024. A lot of you guys know that if you watch me trade live, we've been shorting the life out of the market as markets have been retracing. It's been a big focus as markets have retraced. we've been shorting, but now markets are oversold enough that we're trimming down, right? And not so focused on shorting, and we're eager to get invested long term. I'm beginning to load up on good quality companies that I see value in long term. I have no intention with those investments to make money now. But again, even if things do get worse before they get better, my intention is to make money years from now. I want you to understand that. But in my opinion, I don't want markets to recover yet. I want markets to be cheaper, selfishly. I like sharing this with you guys because I want you to know my intention. Our big focus and big concern right now is kind of like the elephant in the room, the inability for the US and China to negotiate. If that gets resolved, that could be a positive catalyst, regardless if I don't want that to happen or regardless if I want more fear so markets drop further. It doesn't matter what I want, right? I need to be open with you guys. And yes, that is the elephant in the room. As long as there's an ongoing negotiation and nothing is settled, then you can't expect markets to fully recover. But if they do end up settling with an agreement and reducing tariffs, that would be great news, a big win for the overall trade war and markets. That can act as a positive catalyst. We have to talk about that because that's kind of common sense. So until we get that resolved, not everything is going to just be a nice, smooth recovery. The second thing is, well, why is Trump so eager for the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates? Does he just want the stock market to boom? No, I don't think he likes hearing, right? Just like anyone, like everyone's crapping on the market because markets are incredibly bearish as of right now. And it's bringing a lot of negative press. Realistically, the average American is not very heavily invested in the stock market. It's the top 8% of Americans that own about 80% of the stock market of publicly traded companies. So it's more of the millionaires and the billionaires that are more influenced by this downturn. Nonetheless, again, people are still affected. But the part that I think is more of the issue with why Trump is so eager to get the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates is, again, a lot of you guys already know this, and it's the $7 trillion that the U.S. has the ability to refinance in 2025. So they want rates low. And if Jerome Powell doesn't start cutting interest rates soon, they're going to have to refinance, and they're going to have to refinance at a much higher rate. The very simple way that I can put it for you is just imagine that you have, a 6.5% interest rate, right, on your mortgage. And then you were waiting and waiting and waiting for rates to go down. But if anything, they didn't go down. Maybe they actually went up a little bit. And now if you want to do a refinance because, it's coming up to that point where you're going to have to, maybe it's a 6.5%, 7 or 7.5%. So if anything, it's going to be about the same or a little bit worse. So it's simply going to be more expensive. It's going to cost the American people more money because the American people are what pay the U.S. government, and the U.S. government is now borrowing this cash, and they have to pay interest on that cash. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they pay about $300 billion a year. I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure that's the number. $300 billion a year is what the U.S. pays in interest payments only based off of the money that they borrow. And if this interest ends up being more, then that interest ends up getting bigger. Therefore, the debt of $36 trillion that we're in debt is only going to continue to pile and grow and grow. So in my opinion, do I think that Trump cares about the stock market and its performance? I think it's more of like a annoying mosquito. I don't think it's his main focus, but I do think that it's annoying for him and he just wants to swat it. And yes, we have to understand that. If the Federal Reserve does start cutting interest rates, that would be a huge positive catalyst for the market. With lower rates, just think about it. Naturally, Americans love to borrow money. They love to spend money they don't have. So with lower rates, they're more likely to spend more money, therefore boosting the economy. Very simple. So by lowering rates, more Americans are likely to spend more money, boosting the economy, and as well as with lower rates, the U.S. government can refinance at a cheaper rate. That's what I want you to understand. That's what I wanted to express within this video. That is what I believe why Trump is so eager to get the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates. So I think that he's just saying things like this to get people to talk about it, to apply more pressure to the Federal Reserve to start cutting rates sooner than later. But based off of how Jerome Powell carried himself during that last speech, he seemed unbothered. He seemed confident in what he was saying. He almost seemed kind of relaxed. And he was like, no, we're not here to save the stock market. Now, if it really comes down to it, I don't buy that myself. I like Jerome Powell. I think he's very level-headed. I don't think he is too outspoken. He doesn't like to, some people might think he works a little bit slower, but I think he's very calculated in the way that he does things. It is a little bit slower. But my biggest thing is like, he seems to understand his job and he focuses on just that, and he's not outspoken about anything else. Then you have Trump, obviously very outspoken, but he says things like this, I think, just to get a lot of attention and apply pressure to people like Jerome Powell. I don't know if he's going to buy it. Nonetheless, I think that if it comes down to the wire and we are at a point where the U.S. needs to start cutting interest rates to be able to borrow at a cheaper rate, or because the stock market might need, the saving of it with lower rates, it would obviously act as a positive catalyst. So if they do begin to cut interest rates, as of right now, there is no expectation of that. The probability is very low. But again, these are never 100% certain. So there's two main things that I'm paying attention to. The probability that the Federal Reserve is going to start cutting interest rates because of the positive catalyst that it would have to the market. And I'm paying attention to the trade war. Those are the two, I believe, elephant in the rooms that are bringing concern, uncertainty, and fear into the market. So until we figure out a solution to these three problems, I do not believe that markets will have the environment nor condition to fully recover. If they do begin to chip away and one by one, they figure out what's going on with the trade war and they figure out what's going on with these rate cuts, if they come to an agreement when the Federal Reserve can justify cutting interest rates at 2.4%, it's not far-fetched. And in my opinion, they need to start cutting interest rates pretty soon, because if you know how the CPI report is calculated, which is the Consumer Price Index report, which is the inflation report, in the month of June or July, if I'm not mistaken, based off of 2024's performance, there was no increase. So if there's any increase in 2025's inflation report, that would actually cause inflation to go up, pushing us further away from the 2% target that the Federal Reserve has. If you're part of my LPP team, you probably understand what I'm talking about. If you're not, then it just means you have to take a little bit more time to maybe become more familiar with the market. Nonetheless, as things continue to develop, I'll make sure that I do my part in keeping you guys up to date. And again, if you're not yet part of my LPP team, you do not have to. I have over 2,000 free videos on YouTube. You're more than welcome to check it out. But again, if you are someone that learns best with structure, if you're a complete beginner, and if you want to watch me trade live every single day, then again, I do have LPP for you. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access. And with the sale we have going on right now, it breaks down to as little as $1.35 per day. And it's the second link in the description down below. So again, I hope and wish you guys an amazing Easter weekend, an amazing Easter Sunday tomorrow. And hopefully we see you for our live trading session on Monday. Hope that earned a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. Make sure you click that second link if you're not yet part of our LPP team. And like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.